All right, well, welcome to 21.4 Fungi. It's our last lesson for Chapter 21. The goal is to analyze the movement of matter and energy through the different biogeochemical cycles, including water and carbon. There's our far side. Kind of humorous. So, objective 1 is to identify the defining characteristics of fungi and describe how fungi affects homeostasis. Let's think about it first, of course. What is the largest organism in this photo? You might think it's a tree, but in fact, it's a fungus. The only trace of the fungus is the ring of the mushrooms, but the mushrooms are just the reproductive structures of the much larger organism. Most of the mass of the fungus is underground, spanning at least the width of the ring of the mushroom, and extending more than 2 meters under the ground from there, too. Hundreds of years ago, some cultures believed that these rings of mushrooms were marked the spots where the fairies dance. People today still call them fairy rings. So objective 1 is identify the defining characteristics of fungi. All right, many fungi grow from the ground, but fungi aren't plants. Instead of carrying out photosynthesis, fungi produce enzymes that digest food outside their bodies. Then they absorb the small molecules released by the enzymes. Many fungi feed by absorbing nutrients from decaying matter in the soil. Others live as parasites, absorbing nutrients from their host. The cell walls of fungi are composed of chitin, a polymer made of modified sugars that is also found in the external skeletons of insects. The presence of chitin is one of the several features that show fungi as more closely related to animals than they are to plants. So you probably always thought that fungi were plants, but actually they're neither. They're more closely related to animals, though, too. Right? Yeast are tiny fungi that live most of their lives as single cells. Mushrooms and other fungi, on the other hand, grow much larger. Their bodies are made up of cells that form long, slender branches called hyphae. In most fungi, as you can see here, the cross walls right here divide the hyphae into compartments resembling cells, each containing 1 or 2 nuclei. Here's a nucleus, all right? In the cross walls, there are openings so that the cytoplasm and organelles can then move, too. The body of a mushroom is actually the fruiting body, the reproductive structure of, of the fungus. The fruiting body grows from the mycelium, which is a mass of branching hyphae below the soil. Clusters of mushrooms are often part of the same mycelium, which means they are part of the same organism. Mycelium of the soil fungus in a fairy ring has grown so large that it used up all of the nutrients near its center. It grows and produces the fruiting bodies, the mushrooms, only as edges where it comes in contact with fresh soil and abundant nutrients. Fungi can reproduce asexually, primarily by releasing spores that are adapted to travel through the air and water. Breaking off a hypha or budding off a cell can also serve as asexual reproduction. Most fungi can also reproduce sexually. The life cycle of the bread mode Rhizoposa stolonifer is shown here. Sexual reproduction, let's go through this one step at a time, in fungi often involves 2 different mating types. One mating type is called plus, and the other is called minus. Plus and minus. See down here. There they are, mating types, plus and minus. The plus and minus here form pairs, plus and minus nuclei form pairs that divide as the mycelium grows. Many of the paired nuclei fuse to form diploid zygotes within a zygospore. Okay, they fuse to form diploid zygotes. The zygospore then germinates and a sporangium emerges. The sporangium reproduces asexually, releasing haploid spores produced by meiosis. Each spore has a different combination of parental genes and can make a new mycelium. Fascinating, isn't it? More than 100,000 species of fungi are known. Biologists have placed fungi into several distinct groups. The major groups of fungi differ from one another in their reproductive structures. Take a look at this chart right here. You can eye that a little more detailed later. Objectives, again, number 1, was identify the defining characteristics of fungi. Fungi are heterotrophic eukaryotes with cell walls that contain chitin. Objective 2 is to describe the defining characteristics of, describe how fungi affect homeostasis. Many fungi feed by releasing digestive enzymes that break down leaves, fruit, and other organic material to simple molecules. These molecules then diffuse into the fungus. Many organisms remove important trace elements and nutrients from the soil. Fungi recycle these essential elements and nutrients, and if these materials were not returned, the soil would be quickly depleted. Parasitic fungi can cause serious diseases in plants and animals by disrupting homeostasis. A number of parasitic fungi can cause disease that threaten the food crops. Corn smut, as you can see here, and also from our poster in the classroom, can destroy the corn kernels. Some mildews, which infect a wide variety of plants, also is the fungi. That's what got hold of our squash and our cucumbers. Fungal diseases also infect insects, frogs, and mammals. For example, cordyceps fungus affects grasshoppers, poor thing, in the rainforest in Costa Rica. This is what happens. Microscopic spores become lodged in the grasshopper, where they germinate and produce enzymes that slowly penetrate the insect's internal skeleton. The spores multiply in the insect's body, digesting all its cells and tissues until the insect dies. It must be a terrible, painful death. Hyphae develop, cloaking the decaying exoskeleton in a web of fungal material. Reproductive structures which will produce more spores and spread the infection then emerge from the grasshopper's remains. This is a picture of a spider that's been taken over by fungus, and here's an ant that has a fungus growing outside of it. Better than me. A lichen is a symbiotic association between a fungus and a photosynthetic organism. The photosynthetic organism is either green algae or cyanobacteria or both. The protective upper surface of a lichen is made up of densely packed fungal hyphae. Below this protective upper surface of a lichen, below are layers of green algae or cyanobacteria and loosely woven hyphae. The bottom layer contains small projections that attach the lichen to a rock or a tree. Lichens are extremely resistant to drought and cold. Therefore, they can grow in places where few other organisms can survive, like on dry, bare rock or deserts on the tops of mountains, too. Lichens are able to survive in these harsh environments because the green algae or the cyanobacteria carry out photosynthesis, providing the fungus with a source of energy, while the fungus provides the green algae or cyanobacteria with water materials. The densely packed hyphae protect the delicate green cells from the intense sunlight. Lichens are often the first organisms to enter barren environments and gradually breaking down the rocks in which they grow. In this way, lichens help the early stages of soil formation. Lichens are also remarkably sensitive to air pollution. They are among the first organisms to be affected when the air quality deteriorates. Fungi also form mutualistic relationships with plant roots. These symbiotic associations of plant roots and fungi are called mycorrhizae. Researchers estimate that 80 to 90% of all plant species form mycorrhizae with fungi. The hyphae collect water and minerals and bring them to the roots, greatly increasing the effective surface area of the root system. In addition, the fungi release enzymes that are free nutrients in the soil. The plants then in turn provide the fungi with the products of photosynthesis. The presence of mycorrhizae is essential for the growth of many plants. The seeds of orchids, for example, cannot germinate in the absence of mycorrhizal fungi. Many trees are unable to survive without the fungi symbionts. This graph illustrates the growth rate of 3 species of trees with and without mycorrhizae. The roots of plants are plugged into the mycorrhizal network that can connect many plants. In an experiment using isotopes to trace the movement of carbon, ecologist Susan Simard found that mycorrhizal fungi transferred carbon from paper birch trees growing in the sun to the Douglas fir trees growing in the shade nearby. Pretty handy, little guys, nice and helpful. As a result, the sun-starved fir trees thrived basically because being fed by carbon from the birches. Simard's findings suggest that plants and their associated fungi may be evolving as part of an ecological partnership. So objective 2 is describe how fungi affects homeostasis. Fungi are the champions of decomposition. Many species help ecosystems maintain homeostasis by breaking down dead organisms and recycling essential elements and nutrients. Parasitic fungi can cause serious diseases in plants and animals by disrupting homeostasis, and then some fungi, finally, form mutualistic associations with photosynthetic organisms in which both people are partners of this mutualistic symbiosis can actually benefit. So our objectives were identify the defining characteristics of fungi and also describe how fungi affects homeostasis. The goal was to analyze the movement of matter and energy through the different biogeochemical cycles, which fungi definitely help do, including water and carbon. All right, do I have a cute picture? Oh, this is the cutest picture of a fungi I could find. It's an orange spore fungi. It's actually found in New Zealand, and it's quite deadly, but it's kind of cute.